meaning those are the sectors that they are offering to African labor. And so who is to protect the African labor, particularly who is to protect Uganda's labor force that can be an asset? And so as politics has firmly entered the workplace, what was once considered a taboo is now unavoidable. Workers grappling with rising taxes. You do have the stagnant wages, the job insecurity today, unemployment, limited social protection, and the growing informal sector. So representation therefore does matter, not only symbolically but also materially, as we turn to the 15th of January this year. So today in our Kickstarter, we want to examine workers' leadership and representation in the political environment. Are workers' voices a national policy? And what should workers demand in the next term as the different candidates are coming to your locality in these remaining few days? What can you ask them, especially about workers' protections and policies? And how can these interests of workers, employers, employees, and the state actually align to create an inclusive environment that fosters growth as well as productivity, but more so dignity of labor? Allow me to introduce my guests to you. To my immediate left, I do have David Kamukama, Senior Advocate, Biamgisha Gabriel and co-advocates. He's a leading expert in labor and employment law, and he's bringing legal clarity on workers' rights, constitutional guarantees, and the gaps between policy and practice. Then next to him, I do have Dr. Byakatonda, parliamentary candidate, workers' representative, seeking to represent workers. This is at national level, and he outlines some priorities as well as some commitments, accountability, and what workers should be expecting in the next term. Then we're also joined by Mr. Douglas Opio, who is the Chief Executive Officer, Federation of Uganda Employers, and he's representing the employer's perspective. He joins the discussion on job creation, on productivity, labor costs regulation, as well as the balance between workers' welfare and the business sustainability, because the employers make the biggest decisions. Gentlemen, you're most welcome to Morning at NTV.
Thank you, Regina.
Allow me to give you salutations and people hear your own voices. I'll start with you, Council.
Yeah, thank you, Regina. Good morning, viewers. I'm Kamukama David. I've been practicing for 15 years, and earmarking employment and labor laws as one of my niches. I'm also a candidate for Workers MP, and what brings me to the focus is that I believe that 95% of the workers affecting of the problems affecting workers, they lie with the law. Make the law better, non-discriminative, having all the best packages for an employee, and then the employee will be the best person in Uganda. But as we stand right now, those aspects are at crossroads. We have a very well registration, but many of its provisions, they should have left the law a long time ago. Then we have so many other things that we need to be included. So when you bring Kamukama into the workers' MP race, you are trying to say that of the many MPs that are coming up, include a lawyer to identify the challenges in the law and then ensure that law and policy align. Then all the matters affecting an employee would be done away. Of course, there are so many disparity in wages, a poor workplace environment, lack of protection, discrimination, and then a traffic jam in seeking justice, and the challenge is actually when it comes to dispensation of justice. Okay.
Traffic jam in seeking justice is a conversation that we've had with you previously. Yes. Dr. Byakatonda.
Thank you, Madam President Woga. Of course, one word which I caught up when you said global moderator.
Yeah.
That is the scale that I want to treat this whole engagement.
Yeah.
I must mention that I want to thank the workers for entrusting me in 2021 to be one of the MPs in the Parliament. And I think mine is to say, let's protect the gains. Because I have basically had an engagement, and I think we had a commitment in terms of a manifesto where we agreed on provision of vehicles so that the unions can actually be vibrant and strong and reach out the grassroots. The other aspect was on just transition, where we're talking about climate change, where we have actually agreed, and I'm providing seedlings to workers. And the other one, of course, what I want to mention is that let's advocate for financial inclusion. Financial inclusion per se, we are talking about how we can actually form our circles. And I must mention I've sponsored all unions. And now there are 57. All of them have given them money to start circles and cooperatives, so that at least we are talking of empowerment. But the other one, of course, what I must mention is that you missed out one component. The employer is here, and the employees are here, the workers. I think would have had somebody either from government, because we are talking of tripartitism. That is what we envisage under the law. But what I must mention is that economies, like when we talk of the Asian tigers, Hong Kong, and then we are talking about Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan. These countries have developed because of financial inclusion, where they have actually had the workforce. Actually, we are talking about issues of human capital development. Let's talk of the skills gaps. Let's talk of let's talk of talent retention. Let's talk of human resource planning. Let's talk of employee engagement. If we did this, then Uganda is good to go. And I think we shall actually ensure that. Because recently, I think we didn't actually bribe anybody to be graded as low middle income status. But I think we are talking about the power that actually can derive from the workforce.
All right, let's also hear from the CEO.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And it's a huge honor to be here. From the Federation of Uganda Employers, we are excited about what this year brings, because this is part of the agenda which the government has set, working with the private sector, the tenfold growth agenda. So with the tenfold growth agenda, the employers will be at the center. Basically, we talking of an economy which is private sector led. And over the next 5 years, we're looking at tripling the size of our economy. We're looking at our first oil possibly this year. We have been talking about it for long, but hopefully this year it will be there now. Secondly, from the side of the Federation of Uganda Employers is the issue of skills and productivity, which you spoke about. So we already have in place the employer-led skills development policy. The TVET Council has been set in place, so we are looking forward to rolling it this year. So hopefully we can have a higher level of productivity and skills development. We're talking about inclusion. My brother spoke about financial inclusion. We have already expanded coverage with NSSF to the informal sector as well through voluntary savings. So we're looking at scaling these things up. And from the side of the employers, we are very hopeful for the year ahead.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your salutations. And of course, because it's a political season, we'll be engaging with some live updates from our reporters who are on ground to also give us a view of the same discussion as well as electoral updates. Margaret, one member of parliament, she's a worker, and I've also been reliably informed in studio with my guests that right from the president is also an employee of the Republic of Uganda. So we employ the president, he's paid a salary, and so he's also a worker. And so that is how big this conversation is that we're going to be having here in studio. So as we kickstart this conversation, one of the things that we want to really look into is the Constitution and what its intent is around especially workers, and what are the lived realities that we have been faced with since 1995. I'll start with Councillor Kamkama. Uganda's 1995 Constitution has guaranteed workers the right to associate and to provide for special representation in Parliament, and this is through the Trade Union Electoral College. Nearly 3 decades on, it begs the question, has this framework actually yielded meaningful intent in terms of workers' voices in national decision making, or has the promise been diluted over time?
Thank you, Josephine. Priscilla. When you look at the Constitution, Chapter 5, which has the Bill of Rights, it starts with the law against discrimination. It goes to inclusiveness. Then it gets wider under Article 29, which gives a right to belong, and that's what creates trade unions. When you go under Article 40 and 39, then trade unions are created and gives workers to belong trade unions and be protected. But then, while we have trade unions, there is still a lot of gap. When you get an ordinary worker, deep down in Karamoja, deep down in Kisoro, they don't know about trade unions. And these trade unions, some of them are not well funded to go down and recruit. Then also, employers are having a harsh approach towards trade unions. They feel that trade unions are going to force them into collective bargaining, which is good for the worker, but the employee, you know, an employer will always try to maximize and pay less, so that they don't want collective bargaining and good pay. Then at the end of it, while there is legislation against lack of discrimination, we are seeing the wage gap being extremely big. If you want to look at people who move in the same vehicle, that would be the MD and his driver. They always travel in the same vehicle, and they live the day entirely together. You'll find the MD being paid 70 million or upward of 50 million. The driver is paid 500,000. At the end of the day, when they're going back home, they are going to pass through the supermarket. Each one, no one has a plantation in Kampala. Actually, the MD may be having a plantation nearby because he can afford to buy it. They will buy in the supermarket, which has the same pay. But unfortunately...
Yeah, but the MD will be buying brown sugar while the driver is buying the white sugar with those different costs.
Very true. So we are saying, is this fair? Can't we try to remove the disparity, shrink up, try to increase down, and then surely we have a meeting point.
Okay. And
that comes to discussion actually is the issue of the minimum wage that has been laying on the full parliament for more than 10 years now. But you know, this minimum wage, people don't appreciate it. It is supposed to be minimum wage in a particular sector. Precisely the minimum wage for journalists cannot be the same minimum wage with plantations. So the next step I understand is that we are going to earmark to have a board that is going out to study all sectors and come up with the minimum wage. And then, trust me, on the floor of parliament, I'll create a whirlwind and make sure that the minimum wage becomes a reality and ensure that every ordinary Ugandan will be paid well.
Okay.
Out of the Constitution, many laws have come into place, including the Employment Act, including workman's compensation. All these laws were good intentioned. But then the gap lies with implementation. And some laws, actually, some provisions in those laws are supposed to have left a long time ago.
What are the implementing gaps you have realized?
Look at the Employment Act. Employment Act said that once you want to take up, if an employer does unfairness against you, you have a limitation period of only 3 months to have taken an action against the employer. You see, employment contract is also a contract. Other contracts under the law, they have up to 6 years for purpose of implementation. So we are seeing some of these provisions should not have seen light of the day. Let the employee also, actually by the time the employee gets to know that his rights have been infringed and he must seek legal redress, it's too late. 3 months, it's too short a time. And then at the end of it, of course, access to justice has been a challenge. And that's why I'm coming up with a concept of having a legal aid clinic for workers. And discussions are ongoing with Uganda Society that can have a partnership that a worker in every place can use a society center and ensure that their rights are enforced.
All right. Allow me to go to Honorable Dr. Vyakatonda. 5 years and a few days to really end the term. You talked about funding trade unions. You talked about supporting them financially. We want to understand from you what you've been able to achieve in these 5 years, and in terms of accountability and transparency, where do the workers stand having been under your leadership?
Well, thank you so much. I think I must say I've been passionate about workers' issues, and of course it is a cost, that's what I must mention. Of course we have looked at skills and lifelong education. I've actually set up 2 skilling centers at a center called NOTU, National Organization of Trade Unions, and COFTU. Then, like I mentioned, I think when I joined the parliament, were given the money to buy cars. 200 million, I added 1.8 and bought 2 out of SUV vehicles to help them and organize. So what I envisage is that they should really brand those vehicles properly. Central Organization of Free Trade Unions donated by, even they can say donated, even if they don't see. But I think as long as they are being put to use, the National Organization of Trade Unions, I think that kind of stuff. Then ensure that at least the workers should now get the skills, because even at ILO we're emphasizing skills development. And then of course the other thing is currently Uganda has 20% forest cover left. And I think by the next 5 years we might talk of 5. That's why you see conditions are very harsh. You can no longer sleep comfortably. We are having landslides, we are having everything. We are having storms. So we realize that when we talk of under ILO just transition, we are talking about issues of climate change, we are talking issues of skilling, we are talking about issues of employee engagement and a number of things. So what we have done when I came to Parliament, I didn't have appetite for money. I think I mortgaged my salary and got 1.3 billion from Post Bank, now Pearl Bank, and my parliamentary circle. So this money basically we are now trying to make tree nurseries, and we are giving seedlings. So far we have given 35,000 workers in both the formal and informal sector. So what we are saying is that basically you are in the government, you have a smaller job, but plant an acre of trees. And then at the end of the day, we are growing export. Because this is how the Asian tigers have talked about Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, South Korea have managed. Of course, when they talked of financial inclusion, they started actually ensuring that at least the enhanced incomes of the nationals. So we are saying the workers are the vanguards of development. So if they came on board and handled this, then we can actually be able to push. Okay. Then in terms of legislation, I must say I'm sponsoring about 5 bills in the history of Parliament. I have
Which are those?
The labor externalization bill. We are trying to see how our workers, our nationals going out, how can they be regulated? How do we regulate the employment agencies? How can we have a tripartite committee and the key ministries? For example, you're talking about internal affairs, you're talking about gender, you're talking about foreign affairs, and public service, local government. Can we have a tripartite committee so that we regulate? When we do this, we shall be actually reducing on the incidence of trafficking. We shall be actually ensuring that at least we integrate the skills they have acquired into our workers. We are talking about issues of pensions and a number of things. So this law is comprehensive, and Attorney General has already okayed it. We have discussed with the relevant ministers of gender and a number of stakeholders. I think the Federation of Ugandan Employers will actually be on board. So recently I was supposed to table it, seek leave of Parliament to move, but the current instance, circumstances where people are in the field for politics, we said let them, when they come back, Speaker told them when they come back we can actually look at that. Then I've also looked at I'm also sponsoring a bill called Artificial Intelligence Bill 2025. Artificial intelligence is actually taking a toll globally. We must accept the facts. I think we are seeing that even other vehicles are being self-driven because of artificial intelligence. We have robots. So we need to regulate as a country. Actually, some economies, for example, one country has a minister for procurement. She's a robot. I don't know that it's he or she. And now you are saying, when we look at incidents where Priscilla would say, me, I'm tired of marriage, but I want now a man manufactured for me, or a woman manufactured for me, a robot. I think we can solve this. So as a country, it's an important area we need to look at. Then relatedly, I've also come up with a bill entitled the Carbon Credit Sale Offset Bill 2025. We need to incentivize and ensure that at least, because you must imagine when we plant trees, who benefits from the carbon credit? Are the people aware? Yeah? So this can actually provide incentives. This is very important. And I think this bill is also very key and would actually help the country. Okay. Then I'm also coming up with the nurses bill. The other bill I will not mention because we might go with Kamukam at Parliament and it takes it earlier because it's not yet actually the pipeline.
I see the opponents right now.
in terms of achievement also, well, you know, when we had just come to Parliament, you remember COVID-19. Naloga here serves the NSSF. But a house could be mortgaged and it's being taken, but nobody actually, maybe she's left with even 1 month, 12 mandatory retirement and get up a savings. It was not easy. So we came up with an amendment under the Midterm Access Amendment, and now we amended the number of sections, including 21, section 21, where now we say that upon attaining 45 years and constant 10 years of saving, an employee in Uganda, worker in Uganda can access up to 20%. Then under C, we say the people with disabilities who have attained 40 years and our 10 years can actually access up to 50%. I must say this is now a benchmarking destination in terms of social security. Our country has now grown, and I think people are motivated even to ensure that they move in this direction.
Okay.
The other aspect was in under Article 91 of the Constitution. We have also amended the Employment Act, and I think here we are even we are trying to fight casualization of labor, where we are saying somebody has worked your maid has worked with you for 6 months. We are saying why don't that person qualify to have permanent employment now and the permanent contractual obligations. So all these are very key, and I must mention that we have moved in a number of areas, and I must say individually I've divided you know, for us we are independent with him. Why? Because even when we were in Makerere, I was the chairman of Movement Forum, and these were very strong cadres, so nobody can say. In fact, some people are going either to restore their confidence, but for us, we already converted the people.
Okay.
So we don't
all right. You have talked about amendments, and allow me to bring in the CEO for Employers Association. In terms of the Employment Amendment Act of 2023, we're looking to some strengthenings that will happen there, especially in protection of casual labor, including mandatory contracts for workers employed beyond the 6 months, among others. I want to understand from you, which of these reforms directly did affect the employer, and that is both to the positive and the negative?
Thank you so much, Priscilla. First of all, the reforms haven't yet taken shape. So the Employment Amendment Bill was passed by Parliament but not assented to by the President. So at this stage, I would speak from the angle of what is likely to happen, not what is already happening at the moment. So first, on the casualization of labor, that's by far the major one. At the moment, if somebody is working with you seasonally, for instance, they wouldn't qualify to be your permanent worker. But using the new definition that is coming up, it means if they consistently work with you over several seasons, then they would become automatically your permanent employees. And becoming permanent employees comes with its implications, financial implications, benefits that you would have to pay even when somebody is not working. So that's one immediate implication for the employer. And then secondly, very closely linked to that, is that what we do now, we have a lot of oral employment. I just tell you, here is work, do it for me, and it's done. That will not happen again. So anybody at your workplace, you will be under obligation to offer a proper contract, and then even to enroll them into NSSF, pay the applicable taxes, so that that will happen. So at the moment, not any major thing is happening, but hopefully when the law is passed, then we'll know exactly what will happen.
On that note, what concerns do you or do the subscribers to the entity have when we look at the employer's perspective? Because so many of these backlashes come back to the employer. He talked about the delayed injustice to the employee. It comes back to the employer. That gap in between their favors the employer. So right now, as things stand...
Not a favor for sure.
What's your defense?
Now, what Councillor David spoke about, the issue of basically justice delayed is justice denied. We entirely agree with you, David. And we have been in conversation with our trade union counterparts, NOTU and COFTU. This has primarily been as a result of case backlog at the industrial court. You know, the industrial court was structured in a manner that the amendment provided for 5 judges, but we have only 2 judges. And the cases had been accumulating for a long time because this court was not operational for nearly 10 years. So it closed operation for nearly 10 years. Cases accumulated. Now, when the court resumed, it really had a lot of backlog to deal with. So it's mainly linked to the backlog. So what we have done with the trade unions is to try and set up what we are calling alternative labor dispute resolution, where we try to bring some of the cases away from the industrial court, and then we do a mediation, a negotiation between the worker and the employer to resolve the issue out of court. We hope that this will enable us to reduce the case backlog, but from the employer side, it's a risk, because if somebody has sued you, for instance, at the industrial court, it has to be recorded in your books as a risk. Now, the employer also doesn't want a risk hanging over you for a year, for 2 years. It's not beneficial for the employers as well. So we are working to try and resolve this.
What are some of the demands that you have for this gentleman?
Some of the demands we have for this gentleman, the first one is the issue of awareness. A lot of workers do not fully understand their rights. And once they do not fully understand their rights, then we have the risk of issues that could have been resolved at the workplace escalating. Because somebody doesn't understand how the procedures work, they do not subscribe, for instance, to a trade union, they see no place for help. But if you're subscribing to a trade union, for instance, you approach your trade union counterparts, and then you'll receive the required support. So the first and most important thing is that they should create awareness. People should understand the law. People should appreciate their rights. This is also what we do with the employer. We try as much as possible to help the employer to understand their rights and obligations as well. And that's the first. Secondly, the issue of unionization. We have few workers who are unionized. Perhaps maybe even less than 5% of our workers are unionized. This is not a good situation, so to speak. It's easier, for instance, to negotiate with trade unions at a sectoral level. We do it, for instance, in the flour industry, and this is very helpful. We speak about an economy where there is no minimum wage, but in sectors where you have strong collective bargaining agreements, like the flour sector, for instance, the bare minimums are established. The terms and conditions are established. So the stronger we have the trade unions, the better for the economy, the better for all of us. So those are my 2 primary issues.
All right. Candidate David, how do you respond to some of these issues that Opio has raised?
Yeah,
how would you address them?
Thank you, my brother Opio.
Thank you.
When you look at the issue of backlog that you were talking about, actually, the beginning point is that we have not lived the dream of the establishment of the industrial court. The industrial court was supposed to be a specialized court, helping workers and being well-tailored with the working sector. But you see, the industrial court now became a Supreme Court of sorts. Became only one court in Uganda, having the whole of Uganda. You see, the way labor disputes are structured, that once you get a complaint, you bring the labor officer at the district. Now, the labor officer can give you an award, say 5 million from Kaberamaido. Now, 5 million, you must now come to the industrial court to have it enforced. So the cost of enforcing that 5 million is more expensive than the actual award. We are saying that they have started having sects, but we are saying that is still slow. Why don't we do a partnership between Ministry of Justice and Ministry of Gender to ensure that every high court in Uganda becomes also, we can use it to ensure that we have a regional court. I can use Western Uganda as an example. We have more than 7 high court sects. We have Kasese, we have Fort Portal, we have Ushenyi, Mbara, Kabare, Rukunjiri. But now industrial court is here at NTV. If we can ensure that each department, each high court there can also be a part of industrial court, then it will be easier to reduce acts of justice. And then when you go there, another challenge I've seen labor officers. A labor officer is an employee of the district. Now, the most aggressor or abuser of rights of workers in the district, it's the district itself. Now, you are running as an employee to the district that has dismissed you. And then the chief employer is the cow, who is also the employer of the labor officer. Where would you get justice? That goes the far cry we've been having. The far cry that we need Ministry of Labor, by which should be taken out from Ministry of Gender. You see, Ministry of Gender is supposed to be Ministry of Gender and Social Development. Labor was of Smogordin. It's supposed to look at people with underprivileged. Of course, I don't want to define women as underprivileged, but since we have affirmative action, that's how they come into the picture. Youth, elderly, and disabilities. So how does the worker fit into that picture? We are saying we need a Ministry of Labor. Other countries in East Africa have that ministry, by the way. Kenya and Tanzania, it's already in existence. There, the problem of a worker will be fully addressed. My own brother was talking about having a college. We need, government should be intentional in this, to have so many labor colleges for skills development. And I can tell you, when you see an ordinary worker, he gets the minimum qualification of joining a workplace, but skills development over time is not there. Okay. So awareness that he's talking about is very important. And I've been calling upon my colleagues who have been in the labor movement for longer than me, that we should stop having meetings and engagements during elections. We should become intentional. We have regular meetings, regular awareness. You cannot enforce what you don't know. You cannot cry for what you don't have, what you don't know exists. We have so many good things embedded in the law, they are not known. Collective bargaining, people don't know it. But then also I'm requesting my brother that talk to those employers that allowing employees to join trade unions is not a favor. It's a constitutional obligation. It's a duty. But many employers, they shy away from allowing actually sign condition agreements.
Well, because they probably understand the power
of collective bargaining.
That collective bargaining has, that could destabilize the employer at the end of the day. You know, so it's a tricky ground, slippery ground for them, isn't it, Opio?
Yes, you're right.
Why is it good?
How is it a slippery ground for you?
It's a slippery ground if an employer is not a good employer. So an employer who is not a good employer sees compliance with the law as a matter of cost. They don't see it as part of enhancing productivity and creating more wealth for yourself. So they do not treat employees as partners in their business. Yeah. They treat them as part of the machinery and tools that they use, which is, of course, quite wrong. Yeah, so I guess we also have to address the mindset change for the employer, because even though what he talked about, unionization of workers and creating awareness of laws and rights, when you do that, it mostly will be uptaken by the employee, which will cause a lot of havoc for the employer. Doctor?
Yeah, I think first of all, I want to thank Douglas Opio here. You know, Ugandans, we normally thank people when either they are in a coffin. Douglas argued a case in At law where we are accused of child labor. And I think I beg you to actually give us a status upon the law recently in Geneva. But ADR, as you mentioned, is very important. I must mention that in my office, for example, this time I've been in Parliament, I've resolved about 73 cases under conciliation. They come, and at the end of the day, the employers go happy, employees are happy. At the end of the day, it has actually saved a lot of costs. But what I must mention on an appeal to Douglas here is that I think you sensitize the employers about the need for recognition agreements and collective bargaining agreements. And this is a compliance issue, as you know, within the confines and parameters of ILO. Of course, most people do not know. But when you have that arrangement, a framework in place, for example, I can mention that it's deplorable. When you talk of all the ministries in Uganda, we have what we call public service negotiation machinery. I think there is no ministry in Uganda which has actually undertaken this. And yet this actually saves. So you find that they budget, but most of the money goes into handling grievances, offsetting conflicts, offsetting employee X has actually won a case, wants 400 million, and yet this would be resolved. When what is envisaged here is that the framers put it that I think people should have what we call a consultative committee, negotiate welfare, promotions, and all those things. It's very important. I must mention that we have also come up with, we fought and instituted what we call the Labor Advisory Board. This one can make awards. This was missing because I think this has been a challenge also, and it's important. And you talked about an ingredient, mindset. We have actually instituted a webinar under my office. And I must mention that across Africa, a number of countries are joining this webinar. We are talking about issues of workers. We can talk about how performances are handled, negotiations, and a number of things. But I think I must say the poor tendency is within Uganda. Okay. They don't actually see the need. Then we need the follow-up. But I think what I must request Douglas, let's actually have a rebrand. Because you find that these economies, for example, when you talk of the Fortune companies, when you talk of Amazon, Walmart, Google, these companies have grown because they are looking at vibrant human resource policies. And they allow really issues workers to negotiate. But I think here, even finding a CEO eating with a sweeper is, I think that one could be a very big accident. But in Japan, David, Paul, people actually relax with their drivers, they are eating in the same canteens. But here you'll find that even you ask about employees, what is your mission? You are going to ask the manager. What is your vision? They even don't know. So they're actually at the periphery. These are issues that we need to
the segregation just within the
actually, one writer said, we either change or we die. But I think for the Ugandan sector, under tripedalism, we need really to embrace these aspects.
Okay, so I believe that's where a lot of awareness comes in, so that they can know, obligations,
but
rights.
But with Douglas here, so far so good.
Okay.
And I think we are saying, when we beg really, let's have mutual understanding. Of course, the government, at times we come. But I think we need to be proactive. Why do we see strikes?
Speaking of proactive, let's look at how you're going to be proactive around taxes, wages, and the cost of living. For Bana Uganda, workers have consistently expressed frustration over that. High taxes, and they keep increasing. Stagnant wages, the contract that you start with, Douglas's people say that is the threshold. Meanwhile, they are earning more and more out of giving you less and less, yet they somehow give you more labor along the contract, but they're not willing to actually, quantify that. Then there's also the limited visibility returns in public services. Are these concerns that you intend to address, or do you have a manifesto, first of all, David?
Yes, of course, actually.
What does it say about taxes, wages, and the cost of living?
Of course, before you tax me, let me have what should be taxed. You see, at the end of it, I've been so intentional, and I have daily write-ups, which I give to workers. You see, a big manifesto folded and given would be shelved, but every day there is a new write-up which has my manifesto, and which I ensure that it is spread out to the workers on a daily basis. What I'm saying, I'm so intentional about the minimum wage. First, ensure that a worker earns below the bare minimum, and of course now we know that it's not about a standard minimum wage. It's about each sector having its minimum.
Allow me to ask, if brought into bill and maybe assented to by the president at the time, how would the minimum wage act, would that, at that speculative time in the future, actually improve the livelihood of a worker in Uganda?
For the start, it would be saying that domestic workers, minimum pay is this much. Then they say
the sectorial,
journalists. Okay, people are wrong the same, it will have categorization of labor, and then create minimum wage for it. Then, of course, taxes. We still have a challenge that we have had an issues with the IMF and World Bank, and now most of the budgets, we are meeting them ourselves, and taxes have increased a bit. But we are saying that we need also tax holidays for workers. You see, once the worker does not get a minimum pay that can make him survive the following day, and you are subjecting it to 18% tax, then it's a bit tricky.
Okay.
We have seen workers, a worker every day, you know, you're paying him 500, he must navigate traffic. We don't have housing policy in Uganda.
You're paying him 500, but
the person stays
fuel has increased, the cost of food has increased, the cost of housing has increased.
And the worker, actually the worker who is paid 500 can only access accommodation in Wakiso. Meaning transport of that worker.
Then you look at the road infrastructure from Wakiso to CBD.
By the time you get out of the refugee, now it means you must wake up at 5 a.m. and ensure that you get subsidized. There's no subsidized transport.
Yeah.
By the time you reach workplace, it is too late. But then you must go back. Transport alone will take the entire pay for a month. Then you find there is no food at work. Or even if there is, by the time you count 500 or even 1 million to Ugandan right now, who is in gainful employment,
it's really facilitation to do the employer's work.
Yes, you cannot get any earning.
All right.
So we are saying that now.
On that note, Douglas, you know, employers have often argued that high taxes as well as operational costs have limited their ability to increase the wages of their employees. How can, which government policy can actually ease this pressure while ensuring that workers are not pushed to this depth that is being referred to by David?
Yeah. So thank you, Priscilla. First of all, I want to agree with David on the need for a minimum wage in Uganda. We have had extensive discussion already on this, including with the president himself. He agreed to a scientifically determined minimum wage, which hopefully will have, in this new term, we are more likely to have a minimum wage in place. The process has already started with the Ministry of Labor establishing the Minimum Wage Advisory Board, which is tripartite in nature, and through that Minimum Wage Advisory Board will take the direction which David is speaking about on a sector-based kind of minimum wage. But there is a broader question that I want to address as well. Minimum wage will largely cover the formal sector. But remember, close to 90% of our workers are working in the informal sector. When we speak about minimum wage, our minds run straight to the Serenas, to the Sheratons, but there's somebody down here in Chikubo, there's somebody here in Mbarara working in a restaurant. That is also a worker. So minimum wage alone for the formal sector only will not address that. Now, what policy interventions do we require? First is, more broadly, the business environment itself. For the employer, three critical issues that you see regularly. First, access to affordable finance. For the employer to be in a position to expand their business, increase the level of productivity, and then hopefully be able to pay better wages, you need to operate at scale and benefit from what economists call the economies of scale, benefits that accrue to you as a result of increased production. Okay. So government helping to make access to capital more easy for the employer will certainly reduce the cost of doing business. Right. Secondly, is the issue of energy. The president committed to reducing the cost to 5 cents per kilowatt hour for big industrial establishments. And so because he did that, now we are in a situation where electricity is increasingly becoming affordable. The challenge, though, which we still have is the issue of reliability. And moving forward, I think the issue of reliability needs to be addressed, that this power which is cheap is actually available. Because from a production point, Uganda now is producing surplus electricity. So why should we not be having power? There's certainly no reason for that.
Okay.
So those are some of the issues.
Allow me to touch on just one last critical element to labor, that's externalization of labor, the migrant worker. Thousands of our Ugandans are abroad, but the nature of labor that they are having to partake is not impressive. There's the new wilderness, what Ugandan migrants actually face abroad, an article in the Daily Monitor this morning, which raises more concerns that as a country we are entering into labor agreements with developed countries, but what's the nature and what will be the cost of this Muna Uganda uptaking this opportunity? As much as they'll be getting pounds and dollars and yens, but what sectors are they, getting into? They're getting into the dangerous sectors, the injury-prone sectors, and so it begs the question: what are the protections that must be considered moving forward to ensure that Uganda's labor and foreign policy agenda do align to prioritize the Ugandan first? Doctor.
So much. I think this is quite a broad area. And if you read my bill, the bill I'm sponsoring, you will see that quite a number of things need to address. But of course, right from the word go, how are we training our people that we are taking out, and who is responsible for the training? Okay. I think this is very important. I think we are making proposals here. Then who is the responsible centers? We are talking of who is responsible for this, because we find that, Priscilla and the listeners and the viewers, this is an area we need to handle very seriously to curb on the trafficking. And there is even a organic sale, which has actually taken a toll. And then, of course, in terms of competitiveness, why is it that other countries, you'll find they are getting higher pay, and then the Ugandans one are getting low? So when we regulate this, I think we should actually be able to take across sectors across the board. Okay. Such that if you are talking of from industry, you're not only talking of maids per se, but they should be able to go actually across the board. But what we are talking about is to fill the gaps within the legal framework. Okay. Once these gaps are filled, then we are good to go.
Gentlemen, I'm left with 1 minute to wind up this conversation. So in parting shots, I know that David, you have something to say about labor externalization.
Extremely. Thank you. The beginning point, actually, it starts with the government. Most of the existing agreements with foreign countries, they are for skilled labor. And 98% of the labor we are sending abroad, it's unskilled labor. So we are saying that now, let us have those agreements reviewed and ensure that this ordinary Ugandan, whom you are sending outside, you are not sending him to slavery. He is protected, and he can be protected by the country he's going to. Then also, in this extension of labor amendment bill, we need to make it incumbent on the person, the company that is recruiting in Uganda, sending the person abroad, that beyond sending people at the airport, send a liaison officer who will be working with our Foreign Affairs Ministry to ensure that this person, you are not just sending him at the foreign country, but there is constant monitoring, and we can follow up the affairs. And of course, that with the recognition agreement from that country that is saying no, even a driver would be protected, a maid would be protected, then would be sure that our brothers and sisters would not be the third story we see on social media, would be protected.
Okay. All right. Opio, what are your closing remarks?
My closing remarks is just an appreciation to you, Priscilla, and to NTV for giving us this opportunity to have this conversation. We're looking forward to an exciting year. Hopefully our oil this time will be out. And a lot of the foundation work that we have done in the past, seeing it come to pass.
Doctor, your call to action?
I think we want dialogue between employers and government on minimum wage, because they are talking of a labor advisory board, but you cannot have a wedding before you have a bride and a groom. So I want us to look at inflation, because salary increments are based on inflationary tendencies per annum, performance, and risks involved in the job. So I think we shouldn't hide under the minimum wage, but I think Douglas, I want you to give them these parameters, such that at least everybody is okay. But you find that some people, that's had salary increments 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think this
And
is not
David,
workable.
finally.
Yeah.
Thank you. We are saying that workers, they are the engine of this economy. A very happy and well-protected labor force makes the country flourish. So protect a worker, pay well a worker, improve the infrastructure at work. And actually there is something that finally I would say that the workman's compensation act should be amended. Start also compensating for death. We only compensate for injury. But they thought about someone in the fishing industry. Their own accidents is death.
Okay.
So I thank you. But as long as we do legislation aimed at protecting the worker and the workers, the employers are positive, we are good to go.
The beauty about Morning at NTV is that these conversations don't just start the year, but these are continued conversations that we look through the rest of the year. So we will be keeping tabs to some of the recommendations that have come through, and also tabs on the challenges and how they've been resolved by the different stakeholders from government into private sector. That being said, the 2026 term change is here, and it's a critical crossroads to actually assess the person coming to you, a candidate, and ask them, what plans do you have for me as a worker? Will workers' seats in parliament merely occupy space, or are they going to actually exercise real influence over the taxes, over the wages, over job creation and social protection? All those are question marks, and the opportunity is around the corner. In 10 days, on the 15th of January, you'll have the opportunity to assess that, and as a Mnaiga, you make sure that you vote accordingly and wisely. I am Priscilla Regina Naluoga, global moderator, bringing this conversation to the end, but we do have Stephen Bide that is on ground that will be closing the program with us, also talking and giving us the landscape of the politics as we have 10 days to go.